We are going to jump into our next presentation, which is Industry Expert Mixing of VoC Analytics with Journey Orchestration. Speakers are James from Relative Insight and Megan, VP of Global Sales from CSG. Welcome them to the stage, everyone.
Good morning. We don't have any pyrotechnics. I didn't know that was an option.
Actually, surprise, I do have some. Good morning, Toronto. Delighted to be here. So as already introduced, my name is James Copperson, Chief Revenue Officer at Relative Insight, and I'm joined by...
Hi, I'm Megan Lukic. I'm the VP of Sales for our Customer Experience Group at CSG.
So today we have a few things planned. So we're going to introduce what we do, but the most important bit about this talk is effectively why we feel like it's a really good idea to blend analytics and journey orchestration. So we're going to get into that. So just very quickly before we go any further, just to give you a very quick overview of Relative Insight. So we are a voice of the customer / CX analytics provider. So as you can see from the stunning schematic that I've produced up on the left-hand side here, this is kind of how we work. So over on the left-hand side are all the types of data that the majority of people in this room will be dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So think case management from vendors like Zendesk or ServiceNow, surveys from vendors like Qualtrics or InMoment or Medallia, etc. Contact center stuff from Genesys and Verint and NICE. The idea is that you could use whichever mix of those tools you like, and what Relative Insight does is that we bring that data into our environment in an automated fashion, so think every day or every week. And we use a very interesting and unique comparative methodology, which was originally designed to catch bad guys online. But now what we're doing is instead of comparing conversations online, we're looking at voice of the customer feedback. And what we're doing is we're helping you understand, like, how did today differ to the last 7 days? Or how did this week look differently to the last 4 weeks? And what that allows you to do is get to the root cause of what's changing. To put it another way, what's driving your CSAT down or up? What's driving churn up or down? Overall customer effort score up or down? Whatever it is that you're measuring, like what is it that actually is causing that to move? The root cause of it. And then once we've got those insights, which are again are generated automatically, we do reporting in a number of different ways. So we can push that and shove that into your existing dashboarding tools. So if you're using something like Tableau and Power BI and you've spent a load of effort making these beautiful dashboards, then we can support that and push our insights in there. We also produce good old-fashioned emails. So you think Monday morning, you log in, email from us, which basically says, last week, this was the story of your voice of the customer from all of your different channels. What was good? What was bad? What should you do? And we brought this about a year ago. Honestly, email has been completely transformative. It's extremely old school, but it turns out that everyone looks at their email. So that's been fascinating. And then also, as we'll be talking about, we also work with our good friends at CSG to create automated activity off the back of those insights. Instead of having to get humans to tell other humans to do things, to change things based on the insights they found, we can also automate those things. So yeah, very quickly, like we see the value that we provide is basically across 3 levels. So the first is that this process I've just mentioned may already be quite familiar to you. You may be struggling through it or doing it manually, hand cranking it. So what we're able to do is just speed it up, make it a bit more scientific, free the people up in your team to be doing other more interesting things. So that's the base of the pyramid, which is kind of hygiene. Once you start to do that, once those insights are coming out every week and they're in the same format and people get comfortable with them, then guess what happens is that operational people start to actually use them a bit more. And the depressing thing that we often find, and I'll share this, is that when we start working with customers, we'll say, over the last 6 months, give me a feel for how many like really clear operational changes your CX Insight program has driven. And the answer is usually none. That's where we're starting. That's the baseline. And so it's quite easy to improve on that because once people do the odd change, maybe once a quarter, we learned something and we actually change the business, then you're already winning. So that's the middle of the pyramid. And then the top is like, academically, as you make more improvements and operational change, it happens more often, then your KPIs start going in the right direction. Megan's going to tell us about CSG now.
Great, absolutely. So as James mentioned, we are partners I work for a company called CSG. We're a 40-year-old software company, which sounds really old in the software world, I guess, these days. And we work with the largest brands in the world across a spectrum of solutions, largely around monetization, billing solutions, customer experience solutions, managing those interactions with customers, and payments. I represent our customer experience group, which is a software platform that works with, again, some of the largest brands in the world to bring to life some of the things we're going to talk about today. And then Relative Insight's a key part of our overall solution. But just by way of introduction, we work with about 900 customers around the world. We manage about 300 billion customer interactions a year. So we think we've figured out how to do this at this point. And we process about 164 billion payments. We're one of the top 5 performing stocks on the US NASDAQ. And so what we really focus on in our group is bringing really critical customer moments to life and to driving action, right? You probably have lots of solutions today that do lots of the stuff we're talking about here, but we are very focused on how do we manage a customer experience to drive the outcome that they want and probably that you want versus just kind of having these siloed interactions that tend to frustrate people. So that's who CSG is.
Super. So hopefully you guys are kind of getting like analytics guy, orchestration gal. That's basically what we wanted you to get from those first few moments. So like these are some of the things that we believe that we wanted to chuck on. And like you may disagree, and let's discuss it at the end. But these are some of the assumptions that we're working on. So the first one is that most customer-facing brands and B2B brands, for that matter, will automate part of their customer journey to try and make it more efficient, to try and make it cheaper, to try and make it more delightful for their customers. So that's an assumption. Rightly or wrongly, that's an assumption that we're working on. The second one, the challenge, however, is that those automations sometimes don't do what you wanted them to do. They don't actually delight a customer. They really annoy them, or they fall flat, they cause problems, and ultimately like hit the bottom line in the wrong way. And so those results also tend to be unpredictable and difficult to interpret. Like, why on earth is it that part of my customer journey just seems to be completely awful? Everyone gets frustrated and leaves us, or abandons baskets, or doesn't buy the thing, or whatever you're hoping that they will do. And so that's another assumption that we think most people are facing. You know, there's a challenge, there's some bits in their customer journey that are a bit sticky or broken. So here we are with the solution, you may have guessed. So the idea here is, and again, this is another kind of like assumption or truism that we believe in, which is that without voice of the customer analytics, you can't work out what the root cause of your problems are. And so you're effectively automating blind, you know, if you want to use that as like a kind of slightly divisive phrase. But you're saying, I want to automate some bits of my customer journey, and then bits of it are great and bits of it are broken, and you can see that, but actually you have no idea why. What is it that's causing that? Is it the journey itself? Is it a product? Is it your marketing? Is it the way that you're acquiring the wrong type of customers? Like, the root cause of it is really, really essential. So these are some of the things that we believe as a partnership, you know, we're attempting to solve.
All right, I'm going to walk us through this. I'm going to start with a story about what I think is probably applicable to all of us, like an experience that I just had 2 days ago. The star of my story is my phone. So this is an iPhone 13, which my children tell me is like older than the dinosaurs. And I have been with my phone carrier in the US for 11 years, so they should know just about everything about me. And I went online on Saturday, finally I was going to upgrade my phone. So I finally opened one of the like 732 emails they had sent me telling me it was time to upgrade. And I click on the link and off I go. And I build my phone and I'm like, pick out where I'm gonna go buy it. And I go to check out and this like strange screen comes up with just all this code. They're obviously having website problems. So I like try it again and then I go on to their chat and I say, hey, I'm trying to upgrade my phone. And the person is like asking my name, has no idea that I've already spent like 45 minutes on the website, like, reading all the reviews and figuring out what my next phone should be. And I said, look, I already did all this. I built my cart. I just need to check out. Can you help me check out? No, I can't help you check out. It was nothing about me. I mean, we're like 8 minutes into this conversation, and I finally said, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to go to AT&T. I'm going to switch. They make this so much easier. I'm out of here. And I disconnect the chat. And then I go on with my day. Still have my phone, you might notice. The next day, Sunday morning at 7:32 a.m., I have a screenshot of it on my phone. They call me and they leave me a message. And it's Verizon. And like I said, I didn't mean to disparage them. It's my current carriers. tech support, and they call me and they leave a message and they say, hey, it sounds like you had problems with your chat yesterday. And I'm thinking, I have problems with my chat. So the net result is I still have my phone. I haven't actually switched to AT&T, but my plan is to do so. Then they sent me a survey asking me how my experience was, and I was not nice on that survey. I did not say nice things. I did not say I want to come back. I kind of lit them up because I said, I've been here with you for 11 years. This should be easy. I have not heard back from them. So now we're almost a week into this. And we're seeing that, is that resonate? I mean, do we all, yes, right? I see lots of nodding heads. And that's happening across all industries because, as James mentioned, right, there's lots of automation that's going on. And so we think about the customer journey across, really anything you might be trying to do, right? First, you got a customer that's trying to interact with you. They're on their website, they're responding to an email, they're trying to do business with you. You probably send them some sort of message, right? Hey, thanks, or here's a marketing message, et cetera. Those two things are different. Oftentimes what the customer's inquiring about is not known to marketing, and so you start getting these disjointed messages, right? I was looking for a phone. At the same time I was trying to upgrade my phone, they were sending me messages about my home internet. My home internet's fine, I don't need that, right? It was confusing to me. I didn't know what to do. Then I reached out to customer care. That's a whole different silo, right? You got a chat group, and you got a group you can call into. They oftentimes don't have visibility to what has the customer already tried to do to interact with your brand, what's the history there, and what's the sentiment, right? Is this customer coming in hot? Like, if we already really upset them, so we need to wrap our arms around them and make it easy and solve their problem. But that doesn't usually happen. You're usually starting over. What's your name? What's your account number? And now you're like getting more and more upset because it's like, I already gave you all this. What that does is that tends to impede a customer's loyalty over time. That's, it's so expensive and hard to get a new customer. And once you get one, right, you gotta do everything you can to keep them. And so most brands have loyalty programs today, and they're oftentimes disconnected with what just happened over here. Again, I go back to my story, but an 11-year customer of my carrier, I've had nothing, no apology, no, hey, let me make this right for you. So I'm not loyal at this point, and that's so key and critical because it leads to the next thing, which is upsell, cross-sell, right? You want to sell your customers more stuff. And to do that, you have to understand where they're coming from. What's their experience been? What is their reaction to the interaction that they've had with you so far? How do they like your product? And oftentimes it's just these messages that come out. It's time for a new phone. It's time to upgrade your vacuum cleaner. It's time for you to take a new trip. And giving no thought to what the experience has already been. And so oftentimes that leads to you lose your customer. The way you fix that is, first of all of these interactions can be connected. You have so much data about your customers, right? We store all this data, and it's like, I feel like we kind of put it in boxes and we put it up on a shelf. All of that can be used in real time, whether it's historical data, survey data, chat data, right? I mean, I lit this person up on chat last weekend, and all of that, had somebody seen that in real time to say, hey, wait a second, right? We have a customer that is like on the wrong path. Let's call them immediately. Let's send them an email. Let's make this easy. Let's give them a discount, right? All the things you could do to sort of rein that back in. That's what's really driving excellent customer experience today, and it's driving outcomes. So I think the challenge we have, again, across most industries is all of these interactions are happening, but they're happening in silos, and they're confusing customers, and they're driving them to do nothing, or worse, they're driving them to go somewhere else that makes this easy. And so that's what we're really focused on today, is how do you take that real-time customer sentiment, voice of the customer, and interject it into all of these different stages of the customer journey. And what you'll find there is you get this really great experience for your customers that drives loyalty, upsell, cross-sell over time. It also will really drive down your operational costs because now you don't have people spinning in circles, not your employees, not your customers, right? You've got this very smooth line. So that's how we're looking at it. And again, I still have my own phone. So if anybody here sells phones, want to sell me one at lunch, let me know.
So hopefully that's clear, like what we're sort of stating that we can do. So what are the prizes? Like, what do you get, in our opinion, and what have we seen customers actually get by combining root cause analysis or voice of the customer analysis with like top flight journey orchestration? So the first one, again, you have to forgive the slightly inflammatory language here, but like the idea is that like if you're asking a chain of people to pass insights along like kind of Chinese whispers, and at the end there's someone that's meant to do something with it, people aren't the best, right? We all know that we are kind of like flawed. And so what
We're not talking
happens
about
is
you people, the other people.
it's extremely messy, it's extremely expensive, it's extremely slow, especially if that company is like big and complicated in multiple markets with multiple business units. Like what we tend to find is that's what drives that answer of like, how many actual things changed last quarter because of your CX Insight program? None, to remind you. That is what I find is that the biggest problem. There's like it's just complicated. It's just hard. So when you take humans out, you know, when you see someone exhibiting churn behavior on their mobile phone or their cell phone, we're able to put an email into their inbox which is tailored to them and it's timely and it's about what they've been talking about. Then guess what? No humans have been involved. It's instant and it's highly impactful. So that's the first thing that we see. Like you're able to close the loop there and actually be able to directly like draw the two things together. The second one, which I already kind of touched on, is that the idea is that you know that Joe Bloggs, who lives in Cincinnati and is this age and has been with you as a customer for this many years, you know about all that information already. All of you have got that in Snowflake or wherever else it's sitting in your CRM. If you also know that Joe Bloggs has been talking about topic A, B, and C repeatedly for the last 3 weeks, when you do interact with that individual, you're not just saying it's time for a new phone, you're saying it's time for a new phone because we know that you're going on vacation and you want a better camera, for example. And so it goes from being like a bog standard, boring old email that's automated to being something that's actually potentially quite delightful and cool for that customer because it's about them and what they're interested in. The second one is just the way that flow that Megan like took us through brilliantly, which is all those different stages, the way that can be improved and sped up by understanding the root cause of the problems or the good things, obviously means that you just get a better return for everyone that goes through your customer journey. And the final thing is that it just happens quicker. You know, we're not having to wait on a meeting being called and all hands, someone senior coming to that meeting deciding, you know what, that is a brilliant insight. Well done, CX Insights team. We're actually going to action that. Let's put a business case together and maybe next quarter we'll fund it and then maybe we'll change something. Like that, by then, the world's moved on, you know, and like everything's changed. And so by allowing automation into that process, you're able to take those chances before you miss them, if that makes sense.
All right, so let's dig into a little bit technically how we do this. So we think about, there's a hole in the stage up here, so I'm just going to stand over here and not move. If we think about we kind of break this into 4 different modules. How do you actually get started doing this? So the first is, which we've talked a lot about, is detecting what's happening. So again, you've got lots of information about your customers, you've got profile information, you've got demographic information, you've got purchase history, et cetera. You have behavioral information. What are they doing on your website? Are they interacting with your app? Are they calling you? And you also have, I'm sure, some sort of voice of customer program. So you've got sentiment that's coming in real time. So the first thing we got to do is detect what are your customers doing and where are things broken, right? I'm sure we've got great laid out plans for customer journey and we think we know what we want them to do. But oftentimes when you look at that myopically, people are getting stuck, right? This is they're abandoning the cart, they're hanging up on your agent, they're not opening your emails, they're disconnecting altogether. So the first is take a look at what's happening there and marry that with the data that you have. Your customers that are, if you've got, survey data that's saying your customers are frustrated with the wait time in contact centers and they're not opening your emails, that customer's leaving, right? I mean, that is, we can identify that that's a churn risk, and so we move into the next, which is decide. And so we decide what is the next best action that we're going to take with a customer or a cohort of customers based on all this information that we've seen up front and what we see is not working. And the next best action is highly customized. And since you have so much data, we shouldn't be sending all of the same emails or SMS or whatever, however we're trying to communicate with them, because only a very small subset of your customers will respond to that because they don't all care about it. So deciding what's the next best action, this is highly personalized and individualized, and then figuring out what do we deliver, what channel, what do we say, when do we send it. So this is really, really key. So we think back to the behavioral data that we have. If we know that James never opens our emails, we should probably stop sending him emails, right? That annoys people. People are overwhelmed with the amount of messages that they get today. I'm sure if you look at your phone, you probably have, anyone want to take a guess how many messages the average adult gets a day? I don't have any prizes, but you can have bragging rights. 1,200 messages a day. If you think about work messages, personal email, SMS, WhatsApp, whatever you use for work, Teams, phone calls that you get, I mean, it's overwhelming what people get. So what people are doing right now is they're ignoring most things, right? You probably don't ignore it when your boss reaches out to you. You might look for something from your kids' schools, but you're probably ignoring like a lot of the noise that's coming at you. And so again, you look at that behavioral data. I've sent him 1,000 emails over the last 3 years. He's never opened one, or he's opened one. Like, turn that off. He interacts with us on SMS, only SMS there, right? So it's figuring out what channel do you use because a customer is likely to respond to it, and then what do you say? And how do you say it and when do you say it? So you can also look at, when does somebody interact? I don't know about you, but like I travel a lot and I make my travel reservations at like 11 o'clock at night because it's like the last thing to do. That's the right time for Delta Airlines and Marriott to interact with me because that's when I'm interacting with them. And then also, what do you say? So these disconnected messages that are going to customers today, this is the part of that overwhelm, right? I was looking for a phone and Verizon was emailing me about home internet. It just pissed me off more than anything, right? I was like, my internet is fine, it works great. So what do we say, how do we say it, when do we say it, where do we say it? And so again, you use all that information. You can also use that with voice to customers. There's lots of people that say, hey, I'm trying to solve my problem by calling a contact center and I never get it there. Offer them other ways to interact with you that will help them solve their problem. And then the last part of that is really looking at the metrics all around it and driving outcomes. So are we helping our customers solve their problems, buy more stuff, renew our solution, whatever it is, the action that we want them to drive? Are these solutions working together? Is it driving efficiency? Is it driving engagement? Is it growing revenue? Is it decreasing operational costs? And so you pull all that together with a rich set of analytics. So that's how we're doing this together. Use the data, deliver the right message, drive the right outcome, have the right financial impact.
Absolutely, yeah. We were talking at dinner about how we miss the days of only having 10 messages stored on your phone.
Yes.
You had to choose which 10 text messages you wanted to say, for those people that remember that. Those are the days. All great academically. So let's talk about a real case study from a real customer that we're working on together and exactly what we're doing. So I want to share some real detail for you guys to be able to take home with you. So the way to think about this schematic is that over on the left-hand side are all the data sets that this organization, Boost, which is part of Dish, had when we turned up, right? So they already have a contact center that's alive and kicking, collecting data. They have social media case management. They've got a chatbot. They collect review data, and they also have a survey provider. Survey provider is in a slightly different color because we're getting a bit detailed now, but I think it's worth going into it. So they'd set up a taxonomy inside their survey provider. So all the stuff that was coming in through their surveys was being neatly organized into all of their different themes, like cancellation or connectivity or handsets or whatever it is that they're interested in. That taxonomy was not being applied anywhere else. So if you're a CX analyst working at Boost a few months ago before we turned up, you would have to log in to all of these different tools in your day-to-day job and try and work out, kind of like almost hand cranking it, like what's going on, like what's going well, what's not going so well, what can I start to report up to my boss in the monthly deck, can I get something in there that I've just randomly found? Not very scientific, but really common when we turn up to companies. This is how it actually works, where the rubber meets the road. So the value that we add in one is that we bring all of those data sets into one place and we produce a taxonomy that goes across all of them. So you're able to analyze all of that different data in the same way, if appropriate, or in slightly different ways if that's how you prefer. But the idea is it's all under one roof, so that if you are an analyst and you are wanting to log into a platform, you log into one where the data is all nicely organized and you're able to see for it all from the different data sources, tagged by date, tagged by customer segment, so that there's a lot more science and process to being able to understand what on earth's actually happening across the whole voice of the customer program if you're a self-serving user. The value that's being brought in too is that, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're doing our comparative analytics. So how did today compare to the last 7 days or the last 10 days or last few weeks or whatever it is that you're comparing, depending on your reporting cycle. And those insights are automatically pushed into emails. And for this particular example, there's a number of different emails that go out 8 a.m. Mountain Time on a Monday morning. So there's an executive summary. So for the senior people in the business, this is the whole voice of the customer story from last week. Good, bad, ugly, quotations, statistics to back it up, pegged against the things that they measure, which happen to be CSAT, OSAT, and churn. Those are the three big numbers that keep them up at night. So that's at the top of the email. Are they up? Are they down? And then why? That's what the execs get. And then there are probably about 6 different versions of that email, 4 different teams. So there's one for the billing team, there's one for the connectivity and services team, there's one for the et cetera, that is tailored to them with their KPIs and the reasons why. And then the other thing is we're then pushing all of those insights into the respective Power BI dashboards that those teams look at. So that's all happening automatically in the background. On to 3, which is where our best friends at CSG come in. If someone in one of those data sets hits one of the things that the company is concerned about, churn being a big one. So someone's saying, I'm really frustrated, I'm thinking about moving away from Boost because X, Y, and Z. Then that email is automatically picked up and sent to their memberships team so that the agent can interact with them directly, on a one-by-one basis. So instead of having to just rely on group insights, which are very important, obviously, we're also able to bring individual customers every day, whether it's things like churn or being missold or wanting to upgrade, whatever it is that they're wanting to tag, those emails get passed through to the relevant agent automatically. And then the final thing is that they use a well-known data warehousing tool where all of their information is stored about all of their customers. And what we're now able to do is start to enrich those customer profiles with behavior. So not only who they are, what they spend, but also what they've said and how they've interacted. And that means that we're kind of getting ready for some exciting stuff in the future that they'll be able to do with all of that information. And so we wanted to basically just talk through a real-world example. So thank you very much for all the time and effort and energy for being here for the session. Hopefully, we're aware that we gave you a lot there, but hopefully some of it stuck. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've got some time for questions. I think we've got 4 minutes left for questions if there are any in the room.
Yep.
Thank you for your presentation. My voice doesn't travel well.
I thought you were doing pretty well.
We got you.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. A couple of things came to mind when you were talking, actually. So one thing is, how do you basically, what would motivate companies in an layout like we have in Canada, where there are a lot of oligopolies? Like we have 2 large, service providers. You got Rogers and Bell, really. Even for things like groceries, like you have the Loblaw group, which very much monopolizes, and then you've got kind of smaller shops. Like, what is the incentive for them to really care that much about the customer experience, especially when it has to do with complaints or customer care, not so much going through their shops? Because in my experience, over the years, it's felt like they give less and less of a crap about us. And it's a lot of just what you experience with AT&T, which is talk to this chatbot, talk to this thing, and you're going in circles. And you see it with Microsoft and Apple too, who, again, it's like an oligopoly. They don't really have competition besides each other. So what is the driver for them? Why, or what would make them want to put so much time and effort and funding into something like this when I, as a customer, genuinely don't feel like they do?
It's a great question. And we work with both of them, by the way. So I was like, I'm taking a mental note. I think there's a couple things. I think there is always competition, so they are very concerned about that. I think when we think about carriers in general, they're very concerned with customer lifetime value. So there is this constant desire to sell you more stuff, and to not have you move to another provider, but they're measured a lot on revenue growth over that customer lifetime. So that is one of the drivers, is they want to sell you more stuff and they want you to be more valuable to them, and they are trying to figure out how to do that. I think the second thing is, as I mentioned, there's so much data that's being collected. It's almost too much of a good thing. They don't know what to do with it in many cases, and that's the big challenge that we have, which is they're storing it, they're paying to store it, they're keeping it secured, but they're not actioning on it, and they're getting a lot of questions around, what are you doing with this? How are you spending their money? I think the third thing is there is tremendous financial pressure right now on OpEx and operational costs. Like we haven't seen, at least I haven't seen, in my career, and so that's the other thing that is driving them. They very much, I think, genuinely want to do a good job with their customers, but let's say they don't care about that. Let's say that's not a thing. They also very much care about making sure that their finances are in order there, because there's just so much scrutiny right now with what's happening. So that is very much also a driver, is how do we get more efficient in what we're doing? Yeah,
and I'd probably add that, if you think about the history of this kind of environment, what these companies effectively wanted to do was just try and palm you off. They didn't want to speak to you.
Yeah.
They would try and like stress test you, see how serious your problem was. Unless it was like the worst thing, they would try and just not speak to you, like read our FAQ guide or whatever like that. Yeah. I think that now what we're seeing is that they understand that that's actually not an option. Like like people will persist. Like Megan's case study, like you will persist. And so actually the lenses maybe slightly moved from like cost per interaction. I want to get that down to like 1 cent or something. Actually changing to like quality of interaction. It's a slightly different way to say the same thing, but basically because we're not going away, because digital channels are so ubiquitous, we're not going away. They have to deal with us, and now it's about quality as opposed to just driving costs down, which is a slightly different thing.
It's a great question, though.
They might not get good at it, but they might get slightly better. There's optimism, yeah. Were there any other questions from the room? One back there. Good, great.
Situations. Oh, okay. Hello. You mentioned having the capability to, analyze the data, identify like churn risks, and then send that automatically to like agents or whoever needs to prioritize or action that. How are you doing that? How interconnected are you technology-wise into all of the other existing systems?
Yeah, so very is the answer. So like, let's take a ticketing system that begins with Z. Like imagine that you're using that one, and that's where you're collecting all of your customer tickets. What you've got by using comparison, so we're getting back to our methodology, is if you look at 6 months of that data, what you can do is you can compare did churn versus did not churn. Right? So you've got thousands and thousands and thousands of customers that did churn, and you compare them to ones that did not. Let's assume that all these customers are unhappy ones. By comparing those two language sets, what you're left with is the unique language that churning people use. And that is then what you create your triggers from. So when someone exhibits that type of language, which you've tested at massive scale, we're talking at thousands, thousands, thousands of interactions, when someone uses those words, that's what generates the email. Is it a perfect science? Absolutely not. Is it pretty good? Yes. It gets pretty close.
And then how are you sending that trigger to
Yeah,
the systems?
that's a great question, and I know we're a little bit over time, so we can chat if you want to come by our booth, but very high level, that's where we come in. So Exponent is a SaaS platform that is doing just that. It's ingesting data from anywhere that it lives via API, and then it's triggering messaging. So whether we're sending it ourselves or we're sending a trigger to your email solution that says, hey, James is upset. He's a longtime customer. It's time to reach out with a nice email that solves his problem. And so we're actually triggering that. So that's how they're gathering the data and analyzing it. We're actioning on it.
Yeah, that's where the two solutions come together. Exactly.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Great question. Yeah, we are definitely solidly over time. So with that, there are two bits of some case studies if you'd like to download, which are the two QR codes. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Nice.